Jeez, Assalamu alaikum. Good morning here in North America and good evening in Pakistan. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday, taking your time out of your valuable, vacational holiday time. Today, we have a very important guest, and I was just chatting with him. Can you hear me? So we were chatting that he has so much accomplished in a short period of time, and his bio and profile is so immensely extensive that I would like to tell a bit before his presentation, whatever he thinks, how he would like us to know in 2 minutes before the presentation, and then he will start with the presentation. Please, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving this opportunity. It's a great platform for physicians like us to share our experiences, and I wouldn't call it expertise, but definitely experiences and the journey we have gone through as a foreign medical graduates in the United States. So my name is Izhar Hasan. I'm a graduate of Dow Medical College, Karachi, and last 25 years I've been here in the United States. I'm a board certified family physician. I also have a certification in clinical informatics, which is a subspecialty of medicine, preventive medicine in the United States now. I also have pursued a doctorate degree in biomedical informatics. Currently, I'm the chief scientific officer and co-founder of a nanomedicine drug company. It's called RH Nanopharmaceuticals, based in New Jersey. And what I have done in the last 5 years in the nanodrug delivery system, from commercial perspective and all the hurdles, regulatory and clinical and preclinical, I'd like to summarize that today and present to the panel and all the people who have joined today us, and start a conversation on that for a larger scale technology transfer for countries like India and the Pakistan and India and Asia. So thank you, Dr. Shahid Rafiq.
Go ahead with your presentation. Please share your presentation. You can, I hope that you will have time. We'll have time to chat more. So if 30 to 40 minutes presentation.
Absolutely. I will keep track of time. So. One second, I think it's just. So today's topic of my presentation is nanodrug delivery system. We will basically touch the surface and summarize in a nutshell the opportunities and challenges any drug company is facing globally right now to bring a nanoparticle-based drug delivery to the market. I have a very simple conflict of interest that I am a physician and I am a co-founder of this nanodrug company, RH Nanopharmaceuticals. Other than that, I'm not affiliated with any other drug companies as a consultant, and I'm not getting any kind of a stipend for these activities. Ideally, whenever you touch a new subject, new topic, new domain, you really want to know about the basic idea of the field or domain. So we'll start with some introduction, and then we will discuss the opportunities we have ahead of us in terms of availing these market growth in different parts of the world. And then eventually we'll need to question some challenges basically we're facing in terms of implementing this large scale nanoparticle delivery system adaptation globally. I want to start my first slide with a little clip from the new James Bond movie, which kind of intrigued me that that how these Hollywood is picking up these technology and kind of just like Simpsons, you know that, right? They're just basically programming us already that this is coming next to you. So allow me please 5 seconds for this. So there you have it. Nanomedicine is becoming a fast track, almost like a disruptive app, if you will, in a healthcare environment, particularly because, as you know, that healthcare market is the largest GDP contribution of the United States, at least, $2 trillion to $3 trillion at this point. So by definition, and nanomedicine is nothing but taking a micro level or even a meter level to a very miniaturized version of that and see if the particle can behave same or different and provide a better outcome of disease treatment and diagnostic outcome based on the size of the particle. As you know, the size of the viruses and bacteria are very tiny. Bacteria range from 5 to 10 nanometer. I'm sorry, the viruses, and bacteria are a little larger than that. And they have, compared to that, the drug particles average can go 100 microns or 150 microns. So they're fairly very large, the traditional drug particles. So FDA and other companies, other regulatory authorities have tried to define a definition for what they think is the nanoparticle. For example, FDA is very clear that, when we analyze or evaluate a new drug product, whether it's a diagnostic, therapeutic, or any other part in food component, they're looking for a particular size. They have set the parameters of 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. Although the real deal from their perspective is the dimension of the particle, not the size, because the second definition of FDA clearly defines that, we would be looking at the physical and chemical properties and biological implication of the dimension of the particles impact on health of the patient or the cells or toxicity, not only the size of the particle. So if someone wants to basically cut down this route, they can just literally do the micronization, which is by definition is 300, 400 nanometer above. That could be just simply micronization. They would not fall in the category of nanosization per FDA. Same applies to MHRA and European medical EMA as well. So question is, do we really need a nano drug delivery system at this point? The answer is, if you look at the drug classification of BSL, class 1, class 2, class 3, the drugs are classified into different categories based on their solubility and other physiochemical properties. So 30% to 40% drugs are very highly insoluble, poor soluble, insoluble drugs. And those drugs are hard to get absorbed. So in order to make those very effective therapeutic options more soluble and less toxic, nano drug delivery system is a great opportunity. Conventionally, the drug system is highly, it's very low soluble, which leads to the low bioavailability and absolutely the low efficacy, and they just the body get rid of them quickly. So you take the drug, but eventually it doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. It's not available for therapeutic action. It's definitely not effective, and it gets rid of the body very quickly. So if you consider these the challenges or shortcomings of the current delivery system. Then the nano drug, excuse me, I'm just going to move this screen right there. So the nano drug delivery system is opposite of that. So when you reduce the size of the particle, that leads to basically increased surface area and eventually the solubility. And for technical term, dissolution is also improved. All these first two points lead to the increased therapeutic action or faster, Tmax, which leads to a quick drug action. The best example is one of those sublingual tablets you put under the knee, and they go through the quickly dissolve and get into the bloodstream from the sublingual vascular circulation. And then action of the drugs are very effective and very fast. In other words, if I have to summarize these things for the nano drug delivery system, I would say, through a nano drug delivery system, you get a targeted drug delivery to improve the therapeutic efficacy. And of course, since you can achieve the same results with 50% less dose because you're not wasting the drug, that is not metabolizing quickly, then you would definitely have a less side effect as well. So this is basically, in a nutshell, a quick summary of advantages of the nano drug delivery system. And of course, there are some the challenges and pros and cons of the nano drug delivery system, which we'll discuss down the right in the slides. I think if you look at the current last 20-25 years, since 1994, the first invention of a carrier of the drug, they have the scientists have kind of designed and developed different areas of targeting the drug particle with different options. So I would just so if you look at that, this is the first one, the conventional nano drug delivery system, where you would have a drug which is kind of coated with the different lipid polymer for pH sensitivity. It's almost like when do you want a drug to release and where you want to have a drug to release. That was the first, the modification of the drug delivery system, that we can control the long-acting, short-acting, long depot injections. All these things were designed to kind of control the release and transportation of the drug. Next step is basically when they started looking this, then they realized that a lot of times when you transport the drug from different your entry point, whether it's a mouth or IV or sub skin, there are some challenges in transporting the drug. So the pegylation, the polyethylene glycol polymer excipient, were used to kind of stabilize the drug. Sorry about that. In transportation of the drug. And in addition to that, recently, a lot of basically targeted drug delivery system, people are targeting protein, antibody, peptide, and small molecules, such as a vaccine or cysteine, to get the drug to the targeted area. So this is the part where they start getting targeted. Most recently, very interesting field, theranostic and the drug delivery system is also on the horizon. And the purpose of this is basically to do not only therapeutic option, but also diagnostic option. So now you have a drug which can not only provide you a sensory information about the drug targeted areas, but also can deliver the drug. So both diagnostic and therapeutic in a same drug molecule delivery system can be used to disease targeting and treatment as well. Most interesting development in nanomedicine was not until 1994, when you start having this very soluble, stable, long circulating PEG nanoparticle development. And that led to the first liposome-based drug delivery, Doxil, in 1995. And that was basically a trigger for nanomedicine growth. Since 1995 and it's 2021, we have gone long way. Even though it's not a mainstream yet, but there are a lot of development in the industry, and both on academic and commercial level, which basically predict that down the road, we'll discuss in a marketing growth section in a couple of minutes, that the market is fairly open and just almost like just like a nanotechnology in TV channels and TV LCD and OLED platform. It is going to change the landscape of the healthcare very quickly. I think it's without going in too much detail, one needs to understand briefly, how do you synthesize this nanoparticle? What does that mean? How do you take a big size watermelon and turn into a tiny grape? So in order to do that, there are different technologies available, and everyone thinks that their technology is the best technology. But in general, you have a couple of ways of doing that. One way of doing it is simply that you take the drug and use some kind of milling part, whether it's a jet milling, ball milling, to minimize, kind of basically force water and fluids can lead to the small particle size of the same drug, basically. If you are really looking into a very focused and targeted release, then you have other options such as cryogenic spray processes, crystal engineering. So it's almost like a customized nanoparticle formulation. And in addition to that, if you really want to make sure that the drug bioavailability is your main target, that you have other options to use in terms of freeze-dried liposomes, solid nanoparticles, polymeric missiles, and complexation with other chemical formulations as well. These are the, there are some other as well, but these are the most commonly used nano drug delivery carrier types. So the carrier types is basically nothing but in order to transport nanoparticles, they would be basically lost in the bloodstream. So you really have to combine them with some other chemical stabilizers and surfactants to make sure that while they're getting to their target stream, they're safe and remain flow in the vascular system without any disruption or from the macrophage or other reticuloendothelial system. So I personally feel that any chemical you put in your body, it has some consequences, like excipients. Just because excipient is safe, you don't know what's going to happen when you take every day the same excipient for embedded in a drug. So my favorite is a nanocrystal, because in that thing you have a very minimum part of excipients and chemicals, and sometimes you can even use, if the drug is highly soluble, you can use without any excipients except the surfactant to formulate the drug without any consequences. And you can see the different size of these. Polymer can range from 1 to 100 nanometer. Nanocrystal can range larger to small. Same thing for inorganic and lipid-based liposomes. They have a different size as well. And size does matter when it comes to solubility and bioavailability and biodistribution of the nanodrugs in human body. This is just a quick summary of the different nanocarrier development and the commercial products to the market. As mentioned before, that's 1994 was a trigger for the industry. And a lot of drug companies started getting into orphan diseases and orphan drug indications to kind of monetize a market from both commercial perspective and insurance carrier perspective, that there was a more return on investment for investing in those rare diseases and hard to treat diseases such as cancers. Cancer was number one area where everyone wants to create some drug, because just increasing the longevity lifespan of 3 months to 2 months provides such emotional relief to the families. And so they took advantage of that moment in drug industry, which rightfully so. So in I would just say this is a quick summary, but down the road, if you look at the current landscape of drug available in the market, there are tons of liposomes. There are very obvious nanocrystals and micelles and protein and nanoparticles, tons of medication. And look at this, all the summaries. This is mostly targeting either infection or cancers. Very few drugs were mainstream, like, for example, NSAIDs. Very few drugs have tried to micronize only to lower the dose of the drugs in anti-inflammatory or diabetic area. But other than that, the focus is on cancers and rare orphan disease indication. So the nano drug delivery routes, nowadays, pretty much nothing is, escape from scientists and experimental ventures right now. From contrast agent diagnostic images to the gene delivery to intravenous or topical, every route has been explored to date. But interestingly, the best, most common route people have used is intravenous targeting, both for commercial and investigational routes. Investigational IV targeting is the most commonly explored route right now for nano drug delivery system. So I thought, since we're going to talk about more most common route explored, parental nano suspension, it would be a good idea to give a little quick overview of the journey of the nanoparticle in our body when we take it, and what happened to that. So this is a quick summary that whether you take intramuscular, parental formulation simply means any route other than oral, simply. So if you, as you can see, that whether it's an intramuscular, subcutaneous, intravenous, or intradermal, all this route basically leads to only getting into the mainstream of the blood vessels.
This one.
There's a background noise. I'm sorry, there was a background noise. So nano drug pharmacokinetics basically has some its own caveats, so to speak. So whether you use IV or subcutaneous, they all have their basically challenges. So I would just describe the nanoparticle clearance when it goes into the body. As you can see that it depends with the size of the particle. If you have a less than 5 nanometer size, your kidney is ready to excrete, clear this route. If you have more than 100 nanometer size, even the lungs will participate in that process. Liver actually also is involved, so is a spleen in capturing these nanoparticles. So one of the very interesting phenomena with the nanoparticle is basically whether you can target the target organs or tissue, or in cancer case tumor through the passive targeting or active cellular targeting. The difference is simply that the size of the particle, let it flow between the junction of the cells into the target area based on that cellular targeting, receptor targets into the soft tissue where it's supposed to be. And I know that one of the most interesting and challenging field right now in our healthcare is the blood-brain barrier. So if you look at that blood-brain barrier transportation of the nanoparticles, it's amazing that how many pathways, how many processes are there to take the drug through the cells into the neuroparenchymal area where the drug is widely needed. The drugs are very specific. Brain is very sensitive to any particle. So even though brain doesn't like the big drugs, but it also doesn't appreciate very nanoparticle, which is hard to handle. So there are different processes in blood-brain barrier cells junctions where they can filter through these different particle size based on the size of the particle. So they adapt how they're going to just engulf those particles based on the size of the articles. So we still have a good 15-20 minutes. So I'm going to go over quickly the market forecast of the this nano drug delivery system. As you can see, that that in the next 7 to 8 years is poised to grow almost 20%. And that number here, this blue bar number, is almost like $182 billion from you know, 104 or $5 billion. So it's a significant growth over the next 7-8 years because of the interest of different drug companies and biopharma investors in the drug development industry. And as you can see that in oncology, cardiology, anti-inflammatory, neurology, and anti-infective therapeutic areas are the most commonly areas which they are interested in. I thought it was very important to know that, you know, where the market is going in terms of the different areas of the healthcare arena, you know. So as you can see that therapeutics is the, you know, the really the hot area right now in terms of investment. Although the vaccines and you know, the longevity medication, regenerative medicines are also on the horizon, but clearly the therapeutic and the vaccines are the hot area in next 5 years, 6 years. And if you look at the nanotechnology funding, of course, there's no surprise the United States has taken the lead on the last 20 years in investing in nanotechnology, education, and product development and technology development, in promoting these kind of technology in the United States. FDA is the only regulatory agency which has basically very lenient take on this nanotechnology and nano drug delivery system. If you have a drug already in the market for, let's say, a normal size drug particle, 50 or 100 microns, and you want to miniaturize that drug, FDA would not request you to do a lot of preclinical testing and you know, studies. You know, you can get a lot of waivers in approving that drug to the market. So it's no surprise that, you know, FDA is the most approving agency right now for nanotechnology and nano-related drug molecules. Other than that, I mean, we know that rest of the world is trying to keep up with the United States. There are some activities in even in India, in China, and Russia. Basically, they just fluctuating over time, last 15, 20 years. You know, there are areas where they really want to invest, and there are areas they just shy away from that. So, but United States is consistently investing various funding and initiative for these kind of technology. So, I mean, it's my take as a physician and as a biopharma, you know, investors and developer, that I really didn't realize, being a physician, that what a drug goes through, what are the challenges, you know, because we're focusing on a patient at a time, and we're focusing a drug at a time. But what the drug goes through in terms of developing stages is mind-boggling. You know, the time and the money and resources and challenges is amazingly challenging. You know, so it's no wonder it takes 10 to 15 years even now for a simple drug to get a regulatory approval. I mean, vaccine for the COVID is the exception to the rule because of the need and necessity. But other than that, it's a good timeline, 5 to 10 years before a drug can hit the market for commercial utilization. So, you know, there are different areas, you know, so when you start doing a laboratory lead formulation testing and development, that's one area of challenges and opportunities. this is what everything is started, the research area, an idea is born, and then from there, things are move forward. So same thing, preclinical data, you have a special challenges for nano toxicology studies, because they're not designed for this current conventional preclinical studies are designed for a normal size particle. So no one knows how a 50 nanometer or 100 nanometer particle would behave in a mice or rabbit or dog. So those are the challenges that FDA and other regulatory agencies, even they are not sure at this point. So they basically, they look at the data and then decide case by case, what's the best strategy to mitigate the risk in humans by looking at the data. All data from the previous same drug from clinical toxicology is not even valid. They want to have a bridging nanotoxicology data study again. They want to make sure that you have some post-marketing surveillance for years to come in terms of monitoring the drug behavior in a large human population. And then again, that if you have everything convinced, the drug companies in pharmaceutical industries, they have their own challenges, they have their own priorities, that is this something worth investing in time and money? And then, explaining to a new your new recruit patient subject that this is a new nano drug and which can help you, but at the same time, we don't know the fate of the drug for long term in your body, is quite challenging. So it's not easy to convince patient subjects that drug is a nanotechnology drug as opposed to a simple drug. I think let me just go over the quick summary of these challenges in a different aspect of that. So when we discussed challenges, challenges, as I mentioned before, pharmaceutical design, clinical evaluation, preclinical evaluation, chemistry, manufacturing, and CMC section. These are the broad categories which one would come across. And every subtype has their own opportunities and consideration and obstacles. So this basically, in order to get to a final nanomedicine product, these are the 4 or 5 challenges you should have in mind in terms of developing a drug from the start. So if you miss, if one missed that step in formulation, it will lead to the problems in scalable manufacturing. And if you do that, then the timeline for preclinical testing and clinical testing will be affected. So this kind of a matrix highly correlated with each other, integrated and highly dependent on it. So when it comes to formulation, regulatory, clinical, and CMC, this slides basically summarize the key issues with each categories. When you're developing a formulation for a nanoparticle, you have to really think about, and nowadays we have a lot of technology such as in silico modeling and all this thing. You can model before that how a nanoparticle is going to behave from your ADME study or pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic studies before you can finalize the formulation. Because I'll give you an example that one of the excipients very commonly used in tons of approved drugs called the polysorbate 80 or twin 80 is basically last 4 years, 3 years. A lot of, we have developed a formulation and we found out that literally last month that the drug, basically drug containing that twin 80, we cannot conduct the studies in animals, particularly in dogs, because there are lots of reported dog-related allergic reaction. So now we have to choose a different animal species, to conduct our preclinical studies because the dog is out. So those are the things, you really have to be on the top of the, latest research and R&D to make sure that you're not missing any opportunity to have any problem with your path of successful nano drug development. The other problem is there's no, since there is a new technology, even though it's almost 20, 25 years, it still is not a mainstream that people can just simply, call their CDMO manufacturing facility and say, hey, I need 30 liters of nano suspension so I can test in animals. So it's challenging for scalable manufacturing and resulting in this stability issues, all this thing, and then characterizing the morphology variation, which simply means that when you make nanoparticles, you have to look at the size, how reproducible the size is and how stable that making 1 liter is different, making 100 liters is different. So how do you make sure that there is a consistency in the quality control is there? Nothing is changing in a final formulation, which we'll get into the humans during this the scale up formulation increase in the volume. So same thing what happened to regulatory FDA and MHRA and other agencies in the world, Japanese agencies. They really there's nothing is well defined. They're trying to keep up with that, and they rely on industry to provide the feedback and create a knowledge group to provide some expertise and guidance to create some guidance document for the industry. There's no unified global regulation for nanoformulations and related things. It is discussed mostly case by case basis. And then there is a no classification that what particular excipient and chemical can be used in this kind of basically nanomaterial formulation. So clinical, well, as I mentioned that, there's almost like a 30 to 50% risk that the drug would not behave in the same way as behaved in your in vivo model, such as mice or dogs. So you really have to closely monitor the pharmacokinetic data of a drug before we can conduct anything, and that drug is also needs to be monitored in a phase 2 or phase 3 trial, that because when you go to a 30 people or 40 people for PK study is different as opposed to 500 or 600 people, because there will be a patient-to-patient variation in reacting with these nanoparticles pharmacokinetics data. The other more important issue is in clinical part that, as I mentioned before, the size matters. So if you have a particular size of the particle, drug can be extravaganted into our systemic reticuloendothelial system, which simply means the drug is not available for use because drug has been stored in the liver and the spleen areas for long-term distribution. That leads to the concern for the long-term toxicity of nanoparticle, which is a big area of concerns. But because there's no data available, that no one can question that except that wait and see policy. Same applied to that, there is no well-defined in vitro nanotoxicology testing. So you can't just translate from in vitro to the human body. The human body is unique. That's the whole idea, that human body is completely unique structure. So it doesn't really translate from animal to the humans easily. Lastly, I think the most important, my biggest challenge, of course, I have a physician, medical background, so I never went to the pharmacy school, so, but it's still or chemistry. So to me, it's like a very mind-boggling that, that I say quality by design is not in place, in basically in these CMC sections, so. So let me just discuss individually these challenges, so when you design a pharmaceutical drug, you really have to consider the route of administration. You also have to the dosage and stability of the product, in terms of before you can start your preclinical or clinical studies, our obstacles currently are that, we don't have a good to go large scale GMP production facility structure. You really have to customize for each product. So you really have to discuss with the manufacturing that what are their infrastructures available to deliver what you have. Most of the time, you really have to purchase separate machines for each project, because every product is unique. So, you may need to combine two ways of producing large scale manufacturing of these nanoparticles. And the stability and the size and the way you surface modification, these are all the obstacles you will face compared to the conventional drug production, which is very straightforward most of the time. In terms of preclinical tox studies and preclinical evaluation, most of the time, basically, FDA has a very simple guidance of conventional drug delivery, and there's no special guidance for nanomedicine. So though basically you select the same way you select any animal model, and same toxicology studies, same reproductive and genetic toxicology studies pathway as you would do for conventional. But when it comes to the data, basically no one has a clear understanding how these drugs will behave, in animals. So it's basically literally a trial and error. You give the drug to the animals and you look for the certain attributes. What are you looking for in terms of that how the drug is going to accumulate in different parts of the organs of the animals, and you dissect them, histologically analyze them, and it's a surprise factor is always built in for any step of the nanomedicine, whether it's the preclinical or clinical. And it's a part of learning we all going through as an evolution of a nanomedicine integration in our healthcare delivery system. So I want to design a clinical study for the nano-based medicine. There is no specific criteria for that, but our concern is always like this: since there's no guidance for the nanomedicine regulatory guidance, and there's a lot of intellectual patent issue, you don't know if you get the IND approved for your drug and you have a 5 to 7 years exclusivity from the FDA, that your patent will hold in a patent law, because a tiny medicine change, excipient change, can lead to a new patent in market. And this happens all the time in drug industry. As you know, it's a investment area. So the lawyers are there to basically analyzing situation every time and try to fine tune the patent to basically neglect the prior art of the drug. That means that we can file a new patent because of the new change we have made. So these are the changes, basically for nanomedicine commercialization aspect. So from clinical perspective, nothing is different than a typical clinical trials. You still have to go through the same time and part. Only advantage is that some of the time FDA would buy your prior study. If you're doing a daisy drug, the drug is already in the market and is water insoluble, poorly soluble, insoluble drug, then you can basically provide some previous clinical data and preclinical data to avoid long-term large study sample size. And instead of 400 times 2, 800 patient, FDA might allow you to do a small sample size and not allow, require you to give you waivers on some clinical data, program development, and some preclinical data as well. So the last one is CMC control, right? So again, this is the most challenging to in terms of this is basically challenging because this is the first step anyway. If you can't make the drug, you can't properly formulate, there is no way you can move to the next step of preclinical testing and clinical testing. And if you do anything, if you miss any requirement, if you miss any key attributes, kind of not properly formulated in the initial stages, then reformulation is a very costly proposition in any field, whether you're doing a software development, software development or formulation. Basically is the time you waste. So if you miss the timeline of 2 years of formulation wrong development, it'll just have a domino effect on your whole project. And most of the time, those projects are usually abandoned because of the lack of trust in the process. So key consideration for any nanomedicine development would be particle size, distribution, how do you capture them or encapsulate them, how do you release them, how do you make sure that the drug manufacturing process is robust, scalable, and quality by design, which simply means that in my lame definition is this, the moment you start a process of making a nanomedicine, you really make sure that you look at the Bible of the FDA and ask them what exactly you're looking for, and basically follow the recipe, so you make sure that your manufacturer, whether it's the R&D, preclinical R&D lab or GMP lab, make sure you make them accountable that these are the steps and the requirements we need, and you need to provide the documentation data that you're following those recipe from FDA regulatory approval. Still, at the end, you would not have any large scale nanoparticle manufacturing company, going after you. You just have to find and work with the existing company to see if they can accommodate your project, and follow those critical quality attributes for large scale production of the nanomedicine. So I think in summary, I'm 1 minute above, but what we need is to understand that nanomedicine is hitting the mainstream, and a lot of predictions out there. The next 5-10 years, it's going to change everything. We already have a smart capsule for endoscopy. We have a smart devices. We're talking about nanosensors in iWatch, and that's basically monitoring and capturing the data you need for remote patient monitoring. There's a nanorobot, nanosurgeon to operate on the brain. So the field is expanding rapidly, and it's a very interesting field because to me it's nano, tiny, which is very intriguing, very intriguing. But just like any other field, right? If you listen to Elon Musk, he doesn't think that. He's opposite of that. So there you have it. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know it's a 45 minutes a long time, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Izhar. It was so humbling. I'd be honest, I'm humbled how little I know, and more than that, how little I could grasp, really. But luckily for me, we have a very smart panel, very pertinent and smart panel. So pertinent when I say, obviously, we have Dr. Umar Hayat, who is in pharma, and then let me see, we have a special guest from Islamabad, Dr. Ahmed Kiani, who is a PhD in nanotechnology. So I would first touch, although not to say that other panelists are any less. Junaid is there from technology, and Uzair and Sarwat, Professor Sarwat. But I would start with, let me start with Dr. Ahmed Kiani, because it's the first time he's attending our webinar. And I have been wanting to involve him in these webinars because he has PhD in nanotechnology, but in Islamabad, and what was his journey, and what he sees can be done. Because basically our purpose of our webinar is how that Dr. Izhar, what you have learned, and Dr. Umar and others, can it be translated in some way in Pakistan, or because that's the purpose of this whole series. So Dr. Kiani, please go ahead, unmute yourself for
hello
2 minutes.
everybody. I'm Dr. Ahmed Kiani. I did my bachelor's in Canada, I did my master's at UCL, and I did my PhD at Cambridge. I've been involved quite thoroughly with the nanotech program in Pakistan as well. My research mostly entailed using nanoparticles for large area display application, solar cells, and of course there was a big influence on the healthcare sector, primarily on the reason because healthcare has the most amount of funding, and at the same time, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So for that very reason, there was of course tremendous volume of funding, which is available at any of the institutes where I worked. There are definitely, from a very scientific point of view, challenges to this sort of medication. Primarily because once you are at the atomic level, as I'm sure most of you would concur, you transition from a very classical physics to a very quantum physics realm, where rules of classical physics do not apply anymore. Hence, miniaturization comes at a cost. It opens up different avenues in terms of materials which are being used and the quantity that we focus on, but it also has its challenges in terms of control, in terms of reproducibility, and especially in terms of scalability. And we've encountered these issues throughout in every sector, whether it be pharma or it be motor oil or it be any of the other sectors in electronics. So there is a fine line between miniaturization and the application that you can get out of them and how controlled that they are. In terms of the medicine itself or the healthcare sector, of course, there's smart drug delivery systems which have been under research throughout for a very long time now, as Dr. Izhar has mentioned. There are challenges in order to have them smartly delivered to the infected area or to the area where they're needed. And then there's tremendous research on it already. In Pakistan, in the pharma sector itself, there is, of course, there is no comparison to the R&D which happens elsewhere in the world. And that is because of lack of funding, availability of specialized people, or it is the equipment which is required, especially when you're operating at the nano level, and because these are costly pieces of equipment. So we've had challenges in terms of the innovation there. Hence, we've resorted more to the imports of medicine. But where I personally see a growth with a population size of over 220 million people is a huge market potential for big pharma. And that's been reflected through the COVID vaccine throughout the world, and especially here. There's a lot of interest in terms of setting up these R&D institutes, especially on the healthcare sector with the Chinese companies coming in. They're quite advanced in certain areas and they're ready to facilitate the local infrastructure here as well, especially under the NCOC. So there is potential for sure. There are challenges in terms of getting the right people to come here and administer these programs and develop the required skill set, which would be employed into the industry, which is definitely a government policy matter as well. I personally see a lot of growth. I've been involved with the NCOC. I've been involved in certain other sectors as well in order to promote the scientific part of nanotech here, as well as the academic. I see very favorable results coming out, especially in the near future, if we have the right key indicators which translate into the market.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kiani. Let me go to Dr. Umar Hayat. Please unmute yourself and let us know how, like Dr. Kiani is cautiously optimistic about Pakistan prospect going into this. How do you see, and what question do you have for Dr. Izhar?
So first of all, thank you very much. I think it was a wonderful presentation from Dr. Izhar Hasan. Throughout the presentation, I was trying to figure out whether it's a doctor, physician who is speaking, or is it a formulation scientist or a pharmacist or regulatory affairs. So he has touched upon a lot of things. I am a CMC guy, Izhar, by heart and by soul. I know for a physician, there is always seems like nanotechnology and scale up, those are the challenges. But for me, that's where I enjoy the most. In terms of the nanotechnology, I will put this way. When you try to find something in a dark room, and then you find let's say the torch, and then you go back again and try to find the things. And obviously you will find a lot of new opportunities. So nanotechnology is a technology which is emerging. And as Dr. Izhar mentioned, it's growing pretty fast. I was just looking at another number. It's growing almost like a 30% per year. So I will say it's an opportunity for us, for anybody who is working in the field. And if you can be on the front seat for any technology, that's where it's not like we need to catch up on something. It's something you are starting all together with any other country. So I will say this is a great opportunity, and especially in pharmaceutical. You can always go, as we discussed in another platform, like there is always low-hanging fruit. And I know Dr. Izhar mentioned that he was after the parenteral, which is, again, still a low-hanging fruit, but you can also go with the same route of administration, just micronize. I mean, I will not say the micronize, I mean, produce the nanoparticles. And there are several technologies. I mean, not the one list goes on. So I think I am very optimistic. I mean, the other thing is, it doesn't require too sophisticated equipments either. One thing I will probably disagree, there are several ways to produce the nanoparticles, okay, and stabilize them. Jet milling, ball milling, what it needs, I mean, it's a very simple piece of equipment, right? It doesn't require, I mean, you can buy the secondhand. I can tell you in the market, there are tons of secondhand equipments. So I think if we carefully design the programs and look for the used equipments, talent is always a challenge, I will say, to find the right mindset to do those kind of activities. Otherwise, it's an opportunity, and we should really jump on this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Junaid, and I will request Walid to make Dr. Noor, but panelist also, so that we can learn from him. He has raised his hands. So after Junaid, I will get to Noor, but Junaid, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Hasan. Thanks for the great presentation. I'm just going to jump to a question over here that after the mRNA vaccinations and the way that we are moving the industry towards asking the body to make the drug, that's sort of the new paradigm we are looking at. Just to give you an example, like in Parkinson's disease, we want the substantia nigra cells to start making dopamine more, or, etc. In that paradigm, where the thought process or the vision of the future is to put transcription within the cells of the body to make the drug itself or the particle itself, how do you see the combination of these technologies merging together?
I think that's a very good question, very intriguing question. And you're absolutely right. So there's no limit to moving forward with the nano. My understanding is very simple, right? Our biggest challenge was to see what's going on inside the cell, right? Once we get to the cells and we can get our mold inside the cell in a form of a nanoparticle, we can use that mold to do anything we want. We can simulate the whole nano machinery functioning of the cell to our desire, So the gene technology is, gene editing is nothing but the same idea, right? You take the gene and you tell the gene what to do. Once you understand the Human Genome Project very clearly, I don't think it's not far. In fact, most of the regulatory agency will be concerned about that how we, what are the complications, what are the implications of telling cell to produce this much antibody, this much, the chemicals or desired neurotransmitters when it comes to the brain. So, I don't see any problem with that. I don't see any problem people pursuing those ideas drastically within the next 5 years. So it's a great combination. Nanotechnology just opened the door for exploring all the crazy ideas you have in your mind. You can think of, the guy who first thought of nanotechnology in 1959, Thomas Friedman, I believe is Friedman. His idea was following. What if his friend actually had an idea, who also won the Nobel Prize in physics? What if we have a tiny nano robot who acts like a surgeon? He can take out the brain tumor. That's what he thought in 1959. So here we are after 60 years, we're trying to get the drug into the cell, So next 30 years, I would say that it is a dream come true.
Okay, Noor, but please go ahead, then I'll come to Professor Sarwat after this.
Thank you very much.
Please introduce yourself and have your comment and question.
Yes. Am I being, my sound is okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr.
Good.
Bhatt.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to listen to Dr. Izhar Hasan on a field which is my passion. From 1995 at Princeton, the Nuclear Institute as director, I introduced the word nanotechnology for the first time in my lecture there because I was interested in the biomedical applications of materials as a physicist at the time. And then in early this century, in 2002, we in Pakistan arranged an international conference on materials, and there it is published by the Islamic Academy of Sciences, Jordan. And for the first time, I gave an overview of nanotechnology and its applications in the biomedical field and overall as a physicist. And then in 2003, a National Commission on Nanoscience and Technology was formed in Pakistan by the then Minister, Professor Atar Rahman, under the Ministry of Science and Technology. And for 5 years, I worked as the chairman of this commission. And some 35 million rupees, a very small amount, was spent on popularizing the lectures and holding a conference for the first time in 2005 on nanotechnology applications in various fields in defense and overall. Currently, I'm glad this field has been taken up, and for the last 1 or 2 years, I'm interested in the collection of applications of nanoparticles or nanomedicine, because every day in a survey of nano work, which is an international surveying organization, every day some applications of nanotechnology are coming, and I'm a member of that. So for the last 2 years, I'm collecting the applications of nanoparticles in various nanomedicine fields, the sensing of cancer in various parts of the body, and a lot of literature. It's a revolution in nanomedicine which is coming up. And as a physicist and introducing the nanotechnologies in Pakistan, I can say that making nanoparticles is not difficult, but its qualification is a very expensive business. You need the electron microscope to qualify the size of the nanoparticles. And therefore, you are right that it's cheaper to make. For example, we are making a lot of zinc oxide nanoparticles in our laboratories here, and in Lahore at LUMS, Professor Izhar Hasan is conjugating the nanoparticles of gold and silver very effectively, and he can control the size very precisely.
Sir,
So
what is your comment on the current discussion, sir?
The current discussion is that it's a very important field, and it's Dr. Izhar, the first doctor I have listened to who is interested in the nanomedicine applications. And he has very clearly explained the different problems of toxicology. And I would request that it's to interact with the doctors of Pakistan in APPNA is a very good forum. So
Dr. Bhatt, my question is that what do you see challenge as you have been in key positions? What do you see challenge in Pakistan? Why this? You said that there were conferences in 2002 and 5, and then in the past 15 years or so, what is the challenge that it has not taken up the nano technology industry in Pakistan, or the field?
Yeah, you see, there's a if I get a few minutes, I mean, I've given about 150 lectures on various aspects of nanotechnology in Canada. I'm these days interested in nanoeducation, but the important point you have made is very, very good. In Canada, from the NRC, I got a grant to work the applications of nanotechnology, which industry of Pakistan. This was in 2011 or 12. And I proposed two industries, the sports goods industry and the textiles, because the industries which were exporting our things, and I was thinking at the time that the application of nanotechnology from other neighboring countries may not hinder our export anyway. So I addressed twice the Chamber of Commerce of Sialkot in 2012 and 13, and Textile Chamber of Commerce in Faisalabad. Unfortunately, there's a long story, but the important point is it's not very keen on application of research into and they are buying the.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the main.
Yeah, great. So basically, I think we are sorry about cutting anybody off or Noor, but we would like to hear more from you on 22nd. If we can personally invite, and I'm sure if you can come to our conference in Rawalpindi Medical University on 22nd, the whole day we'll be talking about different innovations, and we'll send you a program and invite you to participate in that so that we can have more discussion, as well as Dr. Kiani. So so that we can hear from Pakistani scientists and technologists what are the challenges and while we are there. So let me go to Professor Sarwat Hussain, and then Dr. Izhar will be. And also I want to give a chance to Adil Memon. He's in the, I think in our attendance, and if he can unmute his mic after Professor Sarwat Hussain.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's always, every Saturday, I'm amazed the amount of talent there is of Pakistani diaspora and Pakistani nationals in the medical sciences. But my question to Dr. Izhar's excellent lecture is that obviously nanotechnology is important, but what are the smaller independent modules in nanotechnology development that can be adopted by someone like APPNA, this group that well contained in itself as outsourcing from the nano technology that we can conduct to contribute to science as well as make it commercially viable?
Excellent, very good question. Very nice to meet you, Dr. Sarwat. So if to answer your question, I'll go back in 3 years, 4 years when we were trying to explore these R&D facilities, right? So in terms of making our drug products and all this thing, we were not sure where we start the process. So I think the easiest way to start a journey of nano, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, nano drug development, is to identify the resources in Pakistan, those who have already existing equipment, as Dr. Umar Hayat says that, and see if we can identify some low-hanging fruit, again, those drugs which are commonly used in Pakistan. And they are basically are good target for class 2 drug or class 4 drug, which are good target for using nanotechnology to improve their bioavailability or pharmaceutical efficacy of the drugs in Pakistani areas, and see if we can create a platform where we can contribute as a, me as a physician, as a pharmaceutical consultant, where we can create those projects, small projects. For example, is one of the institute in Karachi. I don't know if you guys know about Dr. Ataur Rahman's. He has a chemistry institute over there. A physician I'm working with, chemist I'm working with right now, and we're trying to conjugate two drugs together, our drug and a second molecule, because that might benefit for certain other conditions where both drugs are needed. So those kind of small projects can be easily adapted. Technology, basic technologies out there, and some of the equipment, all this thing can be easily purchased, as Dr. Umar Hayat says, as a refurbished products, to ship over there. So we can discuss as some kind of a pilot project where we can brainstorm that what is the best course of action for those tiny projects to create some research related, not only funding, but also a project. We can create something. Basically, you want to create a buzz in an academic area, you need to do something and publish, right? That's basically trigger the interest of the regulatory agencies, academic, government. So I'm more than happy to start the project. In fact, we're publishing 2 papers out of the Karachi right now.
Thank you. Let me go to Adil Memon. Adil, you can unmute yourself. You are in the panelist now. And then we'll come back to Dr. Ubaidullah, and Dr. Uzair will be the last one. I'm sorry for the attendees that we are over time, but it's such a interesting and complicated topic that if you can hang out with us a little bit more. So Adil, can you unmute yourself and speak? Your comment on any application in medicine, dementia, and Parkinson's disease?
I think Dr. Adil has no microphone. He's saying in the chat.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Sorry, Adil. Next time, inshallah, we'll get your comments. But let me go to Dr. Ubaid, who's our regular patron, very supportive of this activity that we have had in this year. And he's the director in DRAP, which is the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. Ubaid, how you see this new emerging technology, and is there any comment and question for Dr. Izhar?
Yes, thank you very much, Shahid Bhai, and very well presented by Dr. Izhar about the nanomedicine. Right now, in fact, nanotechnology is affecting and improving every sphere of life in general. And now the term from the nanomedicine, it has been changed to nanotherapeutics as well. So right now we are talking about the nanomedicine. And the point which Izhar has rightly mentioned about the regulatory perspective, it's very much right, because none of the regulatory authority, US FDA, EMA, or other Health Canada as well, has drafted regulation because of the uncertain behavior of the nanoparticles and nanomedicines. And every regulatory authority, like stem cells, they are regulating these nanomedicine as per their existing regulation on a case-to-case basis. But sometimes back, I was reading an article from the United States Pharmacopoeia that they're trying to, rather they have set a working group by which they're trying to design some monograph, for some of the nano anti-cancer drugs. So right now, regulatory sciences is moving towards the developing of some harmonized guidelines for the nanomedicines, and also as per the pattern of the stem cells, and also for the developing some of the monographs for some of the targeted drug like the paclitaxel and some anti-cancer drug for the targeted delivery. But definitely, because it's a new dynamic field of the nanotechnology and nanomedicine, and only a few drugs have been approved by some of the regulatory authorities. So it will take some time to have a convergent regulatory sciences on the pattern of this one of established drug. But as far as Dr. Izhar has said about some of the clinical trials in the Pakistan, so as we discussed in our APPNA merit previous lectures as well, that now clinical trial is an emerging field for the Pakistan. Pakistan is an emerging player in the clinical trials. So you can have some type of clinical trial, phase 3 trials in Pakistan in some established tertiary care hospitals of Pakistan. And we have the capacity in our regulatory authority to oversee and monitor these clinical trials, because now we have some good CROs in the Pakistan as well. Dr. Uzair can complement that there we have some CROs who can perform such type of clinical trials in Pakistan. So over from my side, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Now, not last but not the least, Dr. Uzair, who has been the patron-in-chief of all this effort, to see if he has any comment and question for Dr. Izhar, and any of his comment in Pakistan as he sees nanomedicine in Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahid. I feel really humble. And thank you very much, Dr. Izhar. What a great presentation and very cutting edge. And we are running short of time. Just a very quick small question. That is the commercial potential of nanotherapeutic or pharmaceutical. As you mentioned that there is a good foreseeable growth by year 2027. So when we look at the challenges, which are huge, inconsistencies, and from patent to the ultimate outcome, and look at the opportunities, the drug delivery systems, they are the leading development in the US market. So how, this huge potential is going to be capitalized with these challenges, with these obstacles, with these inconsistencies? What's your comment? How confident we are that we are going to capitalize on that growth?
It's a very good question. So, this is a capitalist country, United States, as you know. So what happened is, like, when someone smells that there's a money can be made or should be made or would be made, then resources come and join forces. And that is what's happening in this nanotechnology field as well. So every aspect of nanotechnology has been funded, whether it's establishing, if you look at the last 10 years, every university in the United States has established their own version of nanotechnology. They're offering the R&D services. They are offering the preclinical testing for the nano-related drugs. They're offering a nano-informatic tools out there, building the ore. So it's been funded all along every aspect of the drug development in nanomedicine or nanotherapeutics. So I think the market is ready to prime right now. Market is ready to prime, that there are technology and resources out there. And it's not a new field. Dr. Izhar, as you know, that last 20 years, if I just give you a quick summary of the drugs which have been approved, but the technology is rapidly being adopted now. The last 5-7 years been rapidly adopted quickly. So the baseline is there, but I believe that funding, resources, and expertise, at least in US area, is there to capitalize this market.
Thank you all. There were some questions about application of this new emerging technology in Pakistan, and to answer that briefly is that this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to learn together what is the application actually of nanotechnology in Pakistan, and we are finding all these great people like Dr. Kiani and Dr. Izhar and Umar and others who can, and Nurbhat in Pakistan, who can come together, hopefully on 22nd of this month, when we will be in Rawalpindi Medical University, to further brainstorm. And it's a beginning. It's not we are not going to solve it this year or maybe next year, but it's the first step. And as we kind of take first step, then hopefully we'll reach our destination, which is to find these pathways and applications in Pakistan. So with that, I thank the speaker, Dr. Izhar Hasan, as well as all the elite panelists. Really enjoyed today's talk, and especially thanks to the attendees who were very patient. And we hope that you can enjoy. You can join us in person in Rawalpindi Medical University. There are some pre-conference. For example, we have a great symposium which is organized by our Professor Sarwat Hussain on 21st of December in Rawalpindi Medical University. Please come and attend that, as well as the whole day, or 8 to 2 p.m. Of 3 great sessions of APPNA merit on these subjects, including nanotechnology in Pakistan. So it would be great to see you guys in person. Most of you have been on this journey with us from March of this year, when we started to explore the landscape of Pakistan for innovation in healthcare and research. And so now we're coming to the culmination or grand finale. So I request that any one of you or all of you who can make in person to this in-person conference on 22nd of December and also 21st of December. If you need more information, please email us at appnamerit@gmail.com and we will provide more information. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, bye.